So picture this. It's the 1870s, right? And the German education system is it's the absolute envy of the world. I mean, international reformers are literally scrambling to copy it. But then you have this brilliant, newly appointed 24-year-old professor named Friedrich Nietzsche. He looks at this exact same system and he sees a complete, catastrophic failure. But why?
To find out, we're going to walk through Nietzsche's roadmap of critique today. We'll cover 1. The illusion of education, 2. Expansion and earning wealth, 3. Specialization and the scholar, 4. Journalism as pseudo-culture, 5. The state's hidden agenda, and finally, 6. The path to true culture. Let's jump right into Section 1, The Illusion of Education, the Factory of Learning.
Back in 1872, Nietzsche delivered a series of lectures, framed as this fictional conversation he supposedly overheard. And his main thesis was pretty explosive. He argued that our entire modern educational enterprise is essentially an illusion. He saw universities turning into these massive institutional exam halls. That cold, mass production feel, that is exactly what he was reacting against. He warned that we were completely abandoning true humanistic cultivation. Instead, we were transforming schools into, well, factories, churning out standardized workers. True culture was just being swallowed up by a system of rigid, joyless exams and bureaucratic efficiency. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that Nietzsche identified two main, totally opposing forces that were tearing education apart. It's like being pulled in two directions at once. On one hand, you have the expansion of education, this massive drive to widen access to the general public, pushed heavily by the economy and the state. But on the other hand, there's the narrowing of education. This was happening inside the universities, where scholars were pushed into this intense hyper-specialization. They were focusing so much on tiny, obscure subfields that they completely lost sight of the big picture. Let's break both of these down. Section 2, Expansion and Earning Wealth, the Currency of Knowledge.
In the lectures, one of the younger disciples complained, and I think this hits pretty hard even today. He says, "Culture is tolerated only insofar as it serves the cause of earning money. Humanity has a necessary claim to earthly happiness, and that is why education is necessary, but that is the only reason why." Think about that. The whole goal of the modern school was just to make a student current, like currency, able to plug seamlessly into the economy and generate wealth. It became entirely about the financial return on investment rather than actually cultivating a human mind. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
Nietzsche's characters actually lay out three specific motives behind this push for universal popular education. First, you have a rampant drive for wealth. Second, there's a fear of religious oppression, where education is basically used as a tool to dissolve religious instincts. And third, the calculating self-interest of the state, which, by the way, we'll dig into more in just a bit. But the big takeaway here is that, according to Nietzsche, literally none of these motives have anything to do with fostering profound, transformative human culture. It's all incredibly pragmatic. Moving on to Section 3, Specialization and the Scholar, the Academic Factory Worker. So in 19th century Germany, there was this massive shift toward a concept called Wissenschaft. Basically, it means highly specialized academic scholarship and rigorous research. And while the rest of the world was looking at this with total envy, Nietzsche saw a really dark side to it. He saw the pursuit of highly specific data replacing the broad cultivation of character. Scholars were becoming alienated. They were reduced to being basically journeymen, serving this vast, fragmented bureaucratic machine, instead of actually pursuing a unified understanding of truth and life. To really hammer this idea home, Nietzsche uses this incredibly powerful metaphor. He says, a scholar with such a rarefied specialty is like a factory worker who spends his entire life doing nothing but making one single screw, or a handle for a given tool or machine. He was actually taking a direct shot at his own colleagues here, classical philologists who would literally spend their entire lives arguing over where a Greek comma should go. He was accusing them of losing the grand philosophical picture of life just to mine for hyper-specialized data. But if the universities are just churning out these factory workers of knowledge, who's actually answering life's big questions? Which brings us to Section 4, Journalism as Pseudoculture, the Glue of Society. Because academics were so trapped in their tiny little specialties, someone else had to step in and answer those big questions. And who was it? The media. Nietzsche writes, the newspaper epitomizes the goal of today's educational system, just as the journalist, servant of the present moment, has taken the place of the genius. Honestly, this is so prophetic it's almost eerie. If you just swap out the word newspaper for social media feed or the 24-hour news cycle, his critique holds up perfectly today. He argued that this dynamic created a sort of sticky layer of what he called pseudoculture. Journalism binds society together, sure, but it does it through day labor, distraction, and total superficiality. Instead of deep transformative thinking or really engaging with the profound wisdom of antiquity, students leave the classroom and just instantly reach for the daily paper. They become completely addicted to the passing moment and entirely disconnected from timeless truths.
Section 5. The state's hidden agenda: obedience and power.
So behind this entire system of expanded, wealth-driven pseudo-culture, Nietzsche saw a hidden master, an ultimate beneficiary. You have to ask yourself, why does the state actually demand universal education in the first place? Like, why was the Prussian government suddenly so incredibly eager to build schools and mandate education for the masses? The answer, at least according to the old philosopher in Nietzsche's story, is definitely not some benevolent desire to free human minds. Not at all. Instead, the state acts as a mystagogue of culture, basically using education to advance its own power. By controlling the curriculum and tying civil service jobs and military privileges directly to diplomas, the state breeds obedient, uniformed citizens. They don't want revolutionary geniuses. They want loyal civil servants and soldiers to help them compete against other nations. The whole system is engineered for compliance, not enlightenment. Finally, Section 6, the path to true culture, reclaiming antiquity. Okay, so if the whole system is fundamentally broken, what's the fix? I have to warn you right now, Nietzsche's proposed solution is incredibly demanding. It's highly exclusive and deliberately controversial. Step 1 is strict linguistic discipline in your mother tongue. Students have to treat their language with deep artistic reverence to avoid falling into that sloppy, everyday newspaper German. Step 2 means fully rejecting the modern journalistic pseudoculture of distraction. And Step 3, a direct, transformative immersion in Greek antiquity. And he doesn't mean just studying the Greeks as history, but truly internalizing their spirit as a real living model. But here is where his ideas clash the absolute hardest with our modern sensibilities, because Nietzsche vehemently opposed the democratization of education. He poses the question, the most universal education of all is barbarism, is it not? He firmly believed that true education is, by its very nature, an aristocratic pursuit. In his view, the second you try to educate the masses, you inevitably dilute the curriculum until it's virtually worthless. For him, an educational institution shouldn't exist to lift up the majority. Its sole purpose should be to cultivate and support the rare, world-changing genius. And if we fail to build institutions that demand that level of rigor, well, Nietzsche paints a pretty chilling, highly atmospheric portrait of the modern student who's been deprived of true culture. He calls this student a helpless barbarian, slave to the present, lying in the chains of the passing moment, and hungering, always, eternally hungering. Without that deep connection to timeless culture, we are essentially just left chasing the next fleeting distraction, never truly satisfied. Which leaves us with a heavy but absolutely vital question to ponder. If our educational institutions have essentially become factories focused on wealth and compliance, and if our daily culture is really nothing more than the passing moment of our social feeds, where does true education begin for you? How do you go about cultivating your own intellectual independence? Let me know what you think, and please, drop your favorite quote from today's explainer down in the comments below. I'd love to read your thoughts.